It's so nice to hear the voices of some of our viewers that we normally only get to read on Twitter. I mean, I'm talking to you, Bramoro, so I'm so glad. So nice to have these voice notes. All right, quick, I'm jumping into the conversation because this time is flying away with us on this special broadcast that we're doing, and it's sponsored by McDonald's. And we're talking about heritage. And I hope you enjoyed that sort of glimpse into the world of the youth of South Africa. But I wish we could have spent so much more time on it just to get to know them a little bit more and sort of peep into their homes and see what it's really like there. Well, to talk a little bit more though, another very important aspect is language and heritage and how to maintain that cultural pride in South Africa. I mean, we really are privileged to have a multitude of basic ethnic, cultural and linguistic communities who've all shaped our development. So to talk more about this, we've got Professor Nkosinathi Ngcobo from the Department of Linguistics and Modern Languages at UNISA. It's so nice to have you, and thank you for coming out to Constitution Hill to be with us this morning.
Thank you very much, Leanne.
Professor, talk to us about what actually truly makes cultural identity and heritage.
Leanne, what we have to start at looking at the role of language in culture. Language and culture, they are very intertwined, so you cannot divorce language from culture. Because language is used for identity. In order to express yourself as part of the cultural community, language is very much important. So that's what defines language, because culture is a living heritage, but you cannot live culturally without using the language, because everything in culture is explained through language. Cultural activities are explained through language. So language and culture, they are very intertwined. So it's very much important to have or to know your language, especially your mother tongue, so that you'll be able to express yourself better.
Yeah. Are we finding more and more young South Africans, which was not the case with the four youngsters that I was interviewing a little bit earlier? They've held on to their culture, they've held on to their language, they embrace it, they love their heritage. But do you find, perhaps maybe they were just a really good example of hanging on to it, but do you find that the youth are letting go of it, that they're not embracing it and are as passionate about it as you would perhaps like to see them?
Yes, Leanne, because of the change and modernity today, and also the status of certain languages, especially the colonial languages, the socio-economic status is defined through those languages. But it is very much important also to embrace our languages, because you can never practice culture without using your language.
Yeah.
You can use your language only to make sure that your culture is preserved. The concern is that we have families today that are taking their youth to schools that will teach them only the language of globalization or the language of socio-economic status. That affects youth, because when they will have to practice culture, they will have to resort back to their languages, and now they find themselves in a dilemma because they cannot be able to practice culture. So now it means that they will be lost, and they will be looking at other things, and they will be concerned also as to how they will live in future. So there's that kind of cultural loss. There's that kind of also linguistic where people are going towards the language that will help them maybe to preserve a certain economic status, but at the same time they are losing their culture. So it's very much important for youth to be encouraged to use their languages.
So who encourages them? So should it be left up to the families, to themselves? Because when you do go into the work environment, and I mean, it is predominantly English based, so you will go into a major bank, get a job, and to speak your cultural language is not really accepted, because you're dealing with so many different people. So you would be generally asked to only speak English, and then you go home and you probably read English, you watch things in English, you are sort of inundated with the Western world and all the things that they've got. So where does that sort of keeping that cultural heritage come from? How do we do that in quite a complicated country?
Yes, in South Africa, we are lucky because we've got a constitution that has the clause that emphasizes the promotion and the development of indigenous languages. We've got 11 official languages proclaimed in the constitution, and also we have the constitution that also encourages the development and the use of other languages. It includes the languages of communities and the languages that are used for religious purposes. So it means that we've got different stakeholders that have to come in to promote the use of these languages. So the promotion, the strategic plan, that should be developed by each and every community so that every one will know that we've got this multilingual situation, and everyone in the society should be able to be aware that we are in this situation. Multilingualism is part of our constitutional mandate, and it should be promoted and be recognized.
It should be, and yet it isn't. You have got groupings, and I mean, let's get out of the workplace, because that's a different story, and let's go to the schooling system. You have still got people fighting for the right of children to study in their mother tongue and not have to write a syllabus in English, or be forced to have to do something that they don't understand, that it's not what they learn at home. We have, as we say, 12 official languages in this country, with sign language now being adopted as one of the official languages, and yet it seems that we really do only embrace the one, which is writing in English, doing schooling in English, working in English. Where have we gone wrong? Where did that, we lost the path somewhere, and how do we come back?
Yes, unfortunately, Lillian, it's the issue of coloniality. Coloniality has privileged certain languages more than others. So, but that is a problem, because it's a downside to the situation whereby we say we need to be multilingual or we need to be bilingual, where one language is bigger than the other, then it becomes a problem. So we need to reverse that. We need to go back and make sure that we bring that awareness through activities, cultural activities. It can work, because in those cultural activities, people start using their languages because they're part of their identity. They show where they come from, they show their socio-historical background. But at the same time, I have seen that youth now, they're using their languages to even sing in music. We see that now it's common.
Almost like a resurgence that it's happening, and we need it to come from the youth. Because I mean, when we look at something like, I'll take something as simple as a medication box, or I buy something from the shop and I turn around and you sort of look at it to see how to use this. Then you turn around, English is the instruction and Afrikaans is the instruction. No other language.
Yes.
Well, I fail to understand this.
Yes, we need to, because that's part of the thing that we need to do as part of our commitment to the development of other languages. Because can you imagine a situation whereby someone will have to understand the instruction, but because they are told to do something in another language, then they will be able.
They don't know how to do it. I mean, if you go to Greece, things are in Greek. You go to France, things are in French and English, but you know, they maintain their cultural languages. My final question to you as we wrap up now, UNESCO came out with quite a very scary statistic, saying that as many as 50% of the existing languages will be extinct by 2050. Majority of those Asian and African languages. This study, I mean, does it worry you to think that perhaps some of our languages won't even be spoken by future generations?
It's very worrying, because in an environment where we've got various organizations promoting the use and the development of all languages, including minority languages, but we are at a point where we still see that the commitment is not there. But we've got various channels that we can use, especially using the languages in social media, in technology, and so on. So that will be able to create an environment that is different. We need to saturate this environment through the use of these languages. But if we've got spheres where certain languages should not be used, then it becomes a problem.
Yeah.
So we should be able to use these languages everywhere, even in terms of job interviews. We can, mix. We have a situation whereby someone is hired to maybe use a particular language, or in that job they need to use maybe, let's say, Sepedi or Setswana, but they will be interviewed in English. So it's very contradictory. So we need to fix all those ports and make sure that this environment is saturated.
Preserve these languages. Prof, thank you so much for talking to us. We need to take a break. Professor Nkosinathi Ngcobo from UNISA talking to us about language and how important it is for our heritage, and if we don't be careful, these languages are going to be extinct and they won't be used if we do not preserve them enough. All right, we've got to take a break. We'll see you after this.